In this episode, I will share a couple of mother stories with you today. They resonate with me because I am a mother too, and I believe it will resonate with many of you. When you are a mother, you know the peculiar kind of ache that comes when the child you once held in your arms speaks words you never imagined could come from their lips. The story is about listening to words so heavy they press into your bones. Words spoken not out of clarity or truth, but out of wounds. Words that feel like stones thrown against the fragile glass of hope. Welcome to She Became CEO, the podcast for women transforming body, mindset, relationships, and money. I'm your host, Ilze B., and here we speak boldly, heal deeply, and lead lives we're proud of. This is about becoming the CEO of your voice, your business, and your life on your terms. Let's begin. Imagine this, a grown son, weary and hardened, saying, "Money is all that matters. It's all I care about now. My heart has grown cold. If someone in the family died, I wouldn't shed a tear. Everyone is evil. Everyone would act in evil ways if they thought they could get away with it." For a mother to hear this is like standing in front of a mirror and not recognizing the reflection, because she remembers him differently. She remembers the boy whose laughter filled the kitchen, who asked endless questions about the world, who once pressed his small hand into hers with unshakable trust. Now she hears him say his heart has grown cold, and something inside her shatters. Not because she's offended, but because she's afraid. Afraid of what this hardness means for his future. Afraid of the trajectory of his soul. Afraid that the light she once saw in him has been extinguished. Fear comes swiftly in moments like this. It takes root in the chest, tightening the breath. Fear for a child is unlike any other fear. It's visceral, primal. It whispers, "If I don't hold on tightly, everything will fall apart." I imagine fear as a dark angel, not a demon, not an enemy, but a fierce and shadowed protector. The dark angel of fear says, "If I keep you afraid, you'll stay alert. You won't be blindsided." It wraps its wings around you, heavy but protective. I'll share another story of a mother I worked with as a coach. She was a woman of my age who carried her secrets for years. She was guarding her family's reputation so she didn't talk about the abuse she was enduring. Her husband was the breadwinner, and they had accumulated a decent amount, I'd say an 8-digit figure, in liquid assets, stocks, as a family. Yet he was an alcoholic and suffered from depression. Sometimes, when he was drunk, she feared for her life and safety, but she never told anyone about it. I was the first one. She thought it wasn't his fault because he didn't realize what he was doing. She was almost 100% certain her husband was suffering from an undiagnosed mental illness, which he couldn't tell anyone about, or he would risk to lose his high-paid job. They had a daughter whom they sent to a special education school so she could learn arts. They tried to give the best for their child, and then a natural calamity happened in their home country, and the family no longer felt safe there. Since they had the money, my client persuaded her husband and daughter to move to another country and live off of their investments. She told her husband he could see doctors in that country and heal, and nobody in their home country would ever know. So they left. My client started a business in that new country, and I coach her over the internet, since I specialize in helping beginning entrepreneurs. Yet while under the stress in their new country of residence, the worst came out of her husband. His episodes of aggression became so worrisome that I strongly recommended my client to take measures to care for her safety and the safety of their child. They separated. But unfortunately, that wasn't the end of my client's troubles and sufferings. Her daughter started showing troublesome symptoms and behaviors as well. Soon it got so bad that my client often had to lock herself up, fearing that her daughter would hurt her physically. They don't live together now. To resolve the situation that way seemed to be the best way for everyone involved. However, the pain and fear remains in the mother's heart, and we don't know how the destiny of her daughter will unfold. This is another story of how unhealed trauma can affect us and those around us. It doesn't matter if there are 8 digits in the bank account or a new country to call home. Trauma travels with us until we choose to face and heal it. At first glance, these stories might seem worlds apart. One shadowed by scarcity, the other cushioned by financial abundance. Yet both reveal the same truth. Money magnifies what is already present. It can buy schools, houses, new passports, even moments of safety. But it cannot heal wounds. As Ken Honda reminds us in Happy Money, money itself is neutral. It is the energy we attach to it that gives it power. When money carries fear, secrecy, or resentment, it becomes unhappy money. When it carries gratitude, generosity, and peace, it becomes happy money. But if trauma is left unresolved, even 8 digits in the bank will circulate with unhappy energy, because the heart behind it has not yet found peace. Trauma doesn't only shape how we feel about ourselves, it shapes how we relate to money, and through money, how we relate to the world. It can make us hoard or overspend, cling to relationships that harm us, or tolerate abuse because of the security money seems to provide. Trauma can determine what situations we attract, the conflicts we find ourselves in, and the patterns we repeat with the people around us. As long as those wounds remain unhealed, our relationship with money will carry their imprint, and the cycle continues, often silently, until someone dares to break in. Money can also become a silent jailer. For my client, it was one of the reasons she endured her husband's abuse for decades. The wealth they had accumulated offered stability, reputation, the appearance of success, but it also bound her to silence. To walk away would have meant risking her family's image, her daughter's opportunities, and her own sense of security. And so she tolerated the intolerable. This is something we don't often speak about. How financial abundance, while envied from the outside, can trap someone just as tightly as poverty. Trauma thrives in that silence, feeding on the fear of what might be lost. And when we finally see how deeply trauma runs into our choices, our relationships, even into the way money flows in and out of our lives, it is no wonder that fear rises so quickly. Fear comes not only from what is happening in front of us, but from the long shadow of what has already been lived. It tightens the chest, sharpens the breath, and whispers that we are not safe. Fear for a child is unlike any other fear. It is visceral, primal. It says, if I don't hold on tightly, everything will fall apart. Fear itself carries a strange kind of loyalty, almost like a dark angel, heavy, protective, and unyielding. When trauma is left unspoken, unacknowledged, or untreated, it multiplies. As Dr. Paul Conti writes in Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic, trauma is not just an event. It is a wound that alters how we see ourselves, others, and the world. It spreads through families, often across generations, until someone finds the courage to face it. Money may change the scenery, but it does not change that truth. And yet, even this dark angel can grow too heavy, because what once shielded us begins to weigh us down. That is when we have a choice. Instead of fighting fear, what if we thanked it? What if we said, "Dark angel, I see you. Thank you for protecting me. But I can't carry you all the time. I place you now into hands greater than mine." When we do that, something shifts. The chest loosens, the breath deepens, and beneath the fear, we find what was there all along: love. Because love does not vanish when fear speaks. True love remains. Unfortunately, fear rarely comes alone. It walks hand in hand with guilt. Both mothers in these stories ask themselves, is it my fault? Did I fail him? Did I fail her? Could I have done more? This is guilt's voice, whispering that we are bad, that we ruined something essential. But responsibility speaks differently. Guilt says, I must carry this weight forever. Responsibility says, I see how my choices, my wounds, my patterns may have played a role. I acknowledge them. I learn. I grow. One day, my client's daughter, in a moment of frustration, told her, "You never understood me. You cared more about appearances than about me. If you had made different choices, my life would be different now." Those words struck her mother like a blow. For a while, she carried them as proof of failure. But with time, she began to see them differently. They were not the voice of truth. They were the voice of pain. Pain, looking for somewhere to land. And she realized that acknowledging her imperfections did not mean carrying blame for everything her daughter was going through. The other mother, worried about her son, tried to explain to him, every human being makes choices that lead to results they didn't intend. I'm not ashamed of my choices, though I see how some were shaped by unresolved trauma, my own and even ancestral wounds passed down. And the people I met and clashed with had their wounds too. But her son, wrapped in his pain, could not hear that. He answered with irony, "It must be nice for you to feel so enlightened, so guilt-free, so full of love." And that cut her deeply. Not because it was true, but because it was unfair. She does feel guilt. She does wrestle with love and pain. But she has also chosen not to let guilt rule her life. And isn't that what mothers often face? the impossible balance of acknowledging imperfections without letting those imperfections define them. Later, when the conversations ended, both mothers sat alone with their thoughts. Each carried her own version of grief. One wept for the boy she remembered, the man she had hoped for, the warmth she feared was gone. The other carried the sorrow of a daughter's words, heavy with accusation and confusion. Their tears were not weakness. They were love in liquid form, spilling over, because their hearts could not contain it all. Grief, when it's this deep, often points to what lies underneath. It reveals the hidden patterns that shaped the pain in the first place. Patterns that come from long histories, old wounds, and the dynamics of relationships that were never truly safe. And one of the most difficult truths many mothers face is this: the shadow of narcissistic abuse. That is something that does not end when the relationship ends. It keeps echoing, sometimes through the very voices of those we love most. Many women, many mothers, have lived through narcissistic abuse. They know what it is to be blamed for everything, to have their reality twisted, their truth dismissed, their love weaponized against them. And the damage does not end when the abusive relationship ends. It ripples forward. It stretches into the future. Loved ones, children, relatives, even friends may remain confused, repeating the abuser's accusations long after the mother herself has healed. For some, the echoes arrive in a daughter's voice, sharp words of blame, spoken out of pain and misunderstanding. For others, the echoes arrive in a son's voice, ironic words that dismiss the mother's hard-won clarity as detachment or pride. Different words, same wound. The shadow of abuse does not always look like the original abuser. Sometimes it wears the face of the very child you love. This is the cruelest twist: to survive abuse, to untangle yourself, to find clarity, only to be told years later by someone you love that you are still at fault. For a mother, this feels unbearable. This is why the impact of narcissistic abuse can be longer lasting and further reaching than anyone imagines. It is not only the survivor who suffers, but the generations around her who are caught in the fog of confusion. To the women listening who know this reality, let me say it plainly. Being blamed does not mean being guilty. Someone else's projection is not proof of your failure. Their confusion does not erase your clarity. You may carry love, you may carry grief, but you do not have to carry false guilt. Let's pause here. If you're listening, I invite you to take a breath with me. Close your eyes if you can. Picture the one you fear for. See their face in your mind. Notice what arises in your body: the tightness, the ache. Now, imagine your fear as a dark angel beside you. See its wings, its shadow. Whisper, "I see you. Thank you for protecting me. But I place you now into hands greater than mine. Watch as the angel is lifted, carried away, finally at rest. Now think of the guilt you carry. Perhaps it feels like a stone in your chest. Perhaps it echoes with old accusations. Hold it gently in your hands. Whisper, "That is not all mine. I release what was never mine to carry." Place it down. Watch the earth receive it. Now, place your hand over your heart. Whisper, "These are their wounds speaking, not their soul. Their soul is still alive, and my love remains." Breathe that in. Feel the space it opens in you. Fear may return, guilt may return, but each time you can meet them differently. You can see fear as a protector, thank it, and release it. You can see guilt as love in disguise, and transform it into compassion instead of self-blame. The mothers in the story still worry. They still fear their children's future, but they refuse to let fear be driver of their lives. They refuse to live chained to guilt. Instead, they return again and again to love. And this is what we are called to do. To love even when words wound us. To love even when someone says their heart has grown cold. To love even when confusion reigns. Not love as blindness, not love as self-erasure, but love as a steady truth that remains when all else falters. Let me close with a blessing for mothers, for fathers, for anyone who fears for someone they love. May you remember that fear shows your love, but does not have to control you. May you release the guilt that was never yours to carry. May you see the soul beneath the wounds, the warmth beneath the cold. May you trust that even in numbness, a spark remains. And may you return again and again to love. The love that stays when fear speaks. The love that remains when all else is uncertain. Because in the end, this is the truth I hold. These are their wounds speaking, not their soul. Their soul is still alive, and my love remains. The mothers in these stories may never receive the exact words of gratitude or warmth they long for from their children, but their love endures, not as perfection, not as control, but as the steady choice to keep showing up, without letting guilt or fear define them. That is what makes their love radical. It persists even when misunderstood, even when it is met with silence or blame. And perhaps that is the invitation for all of us, to remember that love is not erased by harsh words or heavy shadows, to remember that fear may guard us, but it does not have to govern us, to remember that guilt may whisper, but it is not the same as truth. What remains when all else is stripped away is love. So if fear or guilt visits you in the days ahead, let this be your anchor. These are their wounds speaking, not their soul. Their soul is still alive, and my love remains. Thanks for listening to She Became CEO. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a woman who is ready to reclaim her voice, her business, or her life. You can subscribe, leave a review, or explore more at shebecameceo.com. And remember, the transformation starts with you. Until the next time, lead boldly and speak your truth.